Well, the Cocalico Township Supervisor meeting for February 21st. Order, will you please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please silence your cell phones. Romero is through traveling. He's on the phone, which is legal, so he'll participate in this meeting remotely. Okay, the first part of this meeting is a hearing for zone ordinance amendment, Graybill Zimmerman. Tom?
Initially, I'll state the notice of this hearing was published in the latest newspapers, January 31, February 7, 2019. The property has been posted. The zoning officer has mailed notice to the property owners involved in this rezoning. East Cocalico Township Planning Commission reviewed this proposed amendment December 17, 2018. Lancaster County Planning Commission reviewed this proposed amendment December 17, 2018. We have the proof of publication, a copy of the ECPC minutes, a copy of the LCPC letter. I'm going to ask that that be made part of the minutes of this meeting. We'll note for the record that the property owners, or some of the property owners, the applicant, I'll say, is represented by Mr. Tony Shimonek, Morgan Carlin, Croswell, and Kane, and we'll turn the proceedings over to Mr. Shimonek.
Thank you. Where's RC's phone located? Okay, I'll stand over here then. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Shimonek, or Tony Shimonek. I'm representing Mr. Graybill, who's seated up front here, Mr. Zimmerman, who's over there, and ostensibly the church, which I believe the church representative is here. I do not represent Mr. Copenhagen or Mr. Grant. I believe they're in the back here also. It's a rezoning request, or a zoning ordinance change is what we're requesting this evening. A little history is in order. In connection with the properties, Mr. Graybill and or Mr. Zimmerman were approached by EDC of Lancaster about 3 or 4 years ago about industrial land, and they were approached, and there was a third party interested in possibly moving into East Cocalico Township. That fell by the wayside, but EDC and the township then encouraged Mr. Graybill and Mr. Zimmerman to seek a rezoning of their properties. Mr. Graybill's property, although it's actually in a trust, is approximately 56 acres. Mr. Zimmerman owns 75 acres. Faith Mennonite Church has 4 acres, and I think Mr. Grant and Mr. Copenhagen have approximately 1 acre each. The Grant and Copenhagen properties are residential in nature. The Faith Mennonite has a church, and the Graybill and Zimmerman properties are basically raw land at this point. We also have Mr. Harry Roth, who worked on this proposal, so he's here to answer any questions that might crop up this evening. The property is served, at least there's a railroad line that basically bisects the property of Mr. Graybill. It's also, as we'll get to in a few minutes, the dividing line for the 2 zones between the Zimmerman tract. So part of the Zimmerman tract we're proposing will go to light industrial. All of the Graybill tract goes for light industrial. And then part of the Zimmerman tract, approximately 17 acres or 16 acres, goes into traditional residential. Along the road, if we go, I'm guessing it's north to south, I apologize. A number of homes at the lower end past the Copenhagen and Grant property are traditional residential at this point. The plan, even though Mr. Copenhagen and Mr. Grant are not parties, or not part of the petition, would be to extend that along the street from there up to their properties, and then continuing to the church property, also including Mr. Zimmerman's, at least part of his property. The dividing line on the Zimmerman property will be the railroad tracks. We were before this board 6 to 8 months ago, I guess it was now, in connection with a text amendment. Your board passed that text amendment at that point in time. has to establish certain parameters, certain guidelines in connection with warehousing structures. Mr. Graybill, Mr. Zimmerman, they don't have any plans to do anything at this point, as far as they have no party that's imminent, that's coming in today and saying, we need this property. This is really a rezoning request without anything planned today or tomorrow. In the future, no, obviously no one knows, but that's the proposal at this point. After the text amendment was passed back in September, I believe our office worked with Mr. Goodman on connection with certain covenants. I think the board was concerned, or at least Mr. Goodman was concerned about providing certain buffers in the nature of an earthen beam. We have prepared, I'm not sure if Mr. Goodman, you have these covenants that were prepared by our office. I can pass those out to the board. RC doesn't get a copy, obviously.
I think you had distributed those before.
You did? Tonight or?
Many moons ago, but I think you can hand, it'd be a good idea to hand.
I'll let you do the circulation then, if you please. They're identical covenants, one for Mr. Zimmerman, since Mr. Zimmerman owns a tract, the other property, the other is the Graybill tract. But basically, these have not been filed, these have not been recorded. It's subject to rezoning. If the rezoning goes through tonight, then we'll follow through with the covenants. But that's something, again, Mr. Goodman said we looked at it, and I quite frankly forgot until Mr. Goodman reminded me about it a few days ago. So that's something that will get filed, will get recorded at the appropriate time. If you leave a look, it's even still dated 2018, so it hasn't been updated. But basically, the format is acceptable to the landowners and presumably acceptable to the township. So where are we? Tonight we have an ordinance to rezone various tracts. So the Graybill tract is 56 acres. Zimmerman, as I said, is 75. The church is 4. Grant and Cocalico are 1 acre each. The Graybill property is currently zoned rural residential and suburban residential. And the Zimmerman tract is the same thing, rural and suburban. And the church is the same. The Grant and Cocalico properties, as far as I know, are strictly the rural residential. They are not part of the suburban residential. I have a plan, which I believe was attached also to the petition originally. It's a sort of a before and after plan, for lack of a better term. So on that plan I just handed you, Dean and Sons had prepared it. I apologize, it's not color-coded. There's 2 pages. The first page is the existing zoning. Second page is the proposed zoning. If you look at the existing zoning tract, we have Zimmerman Lot 1, Zimmerman Lot 2. Between Lot 1 and Lot 2 is the railroad tract. It's the dividing line of the Zimmerman property, as far as what we'll propose in a few minutes. And as far as the Graybill property, it looks like it's the property line. The Grant property and Cocalico property are down at the sort of the middle, lower portion of that. The church property will be next to the Zimmerman property. There's a designation Faith Mennonite property. So that's what we're talking about. It's fine print, but basically, as I indicated, they're all rural residential or suburban residential, except Grant and Cocalico are strictly the rural. What's proposed, if you go to page 2 of that plan, again, using the railroad line as a dividing line, we cut the Zimmerman property, not in half, but roughly 1/3, maybe 25%. The portion at the lower end with the Faith Mennonite property, with the Cocalico property, and the Grant property, that's 16 acres plus roughly 6 acres. So roughly 22 acres will go to traditional residential. The Graybill 56 acre and the Zimmerman 59 acres will go to light industrial. So that's the proposal. That's what's been presented to the township. That's what's been advertised for this evening. Now, the question is why? Why are we doing this? The Lancaster County Planning Commission thought it was a very good idea to do this. The East Cocalico Planning Commission, I believe, also weighed in on it.
Step on the toes.
Thank you.
Sure.
No readers are only a buck apiece. The railroad tracks cut through the property. There's water, public sewer. UGI is within 500 feet, I think it is, their gas lines. The railroad line is there. We have a letter from the railroad, it's East Penn Railroad, indicating that they're in favor of this proposal. I have not made that part of the record at this point. The traditional zone along the street makes perfect sense because it's basically a continuation. It gets rid of the suburban residential, the rural residential. I spoke to Mr. Grable briefly before we got started this evening. How many houses could be built as is on his property at this point in time? And I got the impression a few hundred houses. That would put a tremendous burden on the school districts, police, fire, everything else, obviously. Mr. Zimmerman, I don't know, I think his acreage might be a little different, maybe it was 1 acre less, but again, probably 75 houses. So you're probably in the 200, 300, maybe 400 range of houses that could go on the various properties here. The Copenhagen and Grant properties are pre-existing, there's buildings on them already, and I think they're both, as I say, roughly 1 acre. The development of the light industrial would be in one general area. It's served by public utilities, public water, as I said, sewer, UGI, as well as the railroad, so it's a natural spot for this to be located. I believe Denver Boroughs across the street on Weave Road, there's a industrial lot or industrial use across the street at this point, even though it's the borough, it's not technically the township, but it's sort of a continuation of the industrial area there. That's really about it. Mr. Grable spoke to some of the neighboring property owners along Line Road and Stevens Road. He indicated about 17 people, no one was opposed. I don't know what Mr. Copenhagen or Mr. Grant want to say this evening, if anything, so that I leave that up to them, obviously. But that's basically it in a nutshell. Mr. Roth's here to answer any questions you might have from a planning perspective. Mr. Grable's here as an owner. Mr. Zimmerman would prefer to sit in the back and not answer any questions unless he had to. So that's really about it. I'm not sure if the supervisor has been able to hear us or if he's been in a tunnel, but I'm not sure if anyone has any questions at this point. Thank you.
Better make sure to ask RC if he could hear all that.
RC, were you able to hear all that?
Yes, clearly, yes.
Okay.
Where's Mark?
Gentlemen have any questions? Board members have any questions? Mr. Shimon?
I do not.
I do not either.
Mr. Grant and Mr. Copenhagen, would you like to say anything?
I was wondering if the supervisors received the letter that I sent earlier this week.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
The only thing is, I'd like to correct Mr. Shibanek that my property is not primarily residential. There's a house on it. It is taxed as commercial. So, just want to make that very clear that my property is not just a house. And there are several uses that are non-conforming existing, and this will create several more non-conforming uses.
Mr. Copenhagen?
Yeah, I'm with him, because if he goes through with this rezoning, there will be a burden put on him, because, I mean, yeah, it's pre-existing building he couldn't use, like,
But I think he has non-conforming uses on that property, and although it's changing zone, it'd still be non-conforming.
As far as I know, basically, for lack of a better term, he's grandfathered in. I don't think there's any
Yeah.
issue as far as Mr. Grant or Mr. Copenhagen.
It creates a bigger burden to expand non-conforming uses.
You either meet the non-conforming use criteria in the ordinance, or you don't. And you have the same criteria, no matter, doesn't matter which zone it is, you have to meet the expansion of the non-conforming use, or if you want to substitute a non-conforming use, the rules are the same. It honestly does not matter what the zoning district is. Apparently you have a commercial operation on your
There's several
property.
operations. There's agriculture, there's existing non-conforming uses for storage, there's quite a bit going on there.
As long as it continues,
It shouldn't be a problem, because that's my interpretation, I
Right.
represent it, and obviously Mr. Goodman represents the board. And I think nonconformities usually have a 50% expansion rate, I'm not sure what the zoning ordinance provides, but that's typically the way most zoning ordinances read, so I'm not sure if that's,
So
it may
you're
not be
saying-
much of an issue then.
Are you saying like that would be grandfathered in, like that,
I'm not speaking on behalf of the township, but I
is
believe
that grandfathered in? Is that how?
well, it's a non-conforming use. So if it's already there and we're changing zones, you can keep going with that non-conforming use.
It goes with it, yes.
Does it make any difference, like there's high tension wires all going through that property? Does that, with building and that kind of stuff?
As far as your property is concerned?
Yeah, right.
I mean, if whatever's
Because
built.
the high tension is right next to my property.
That shouldn't make any, if it's on your property, it might be one thing, but PBL has its own rules and regulations as far as what can be built and where it can be built, when you get to those high tension wires. So
The only thing is, if it's within their right of way, you might have an issue, but it's not necessarily with the township. It might be with DP&L or whoever owns that high tension line.
Parking lot.
Are you still with us, RC?
Oops.
RC.
God bless you.
Yes.
And as far as sidewalks going, is it my understanding that sidewalks would be on the, up towards Faith Mennonite? Sidewalks would be required on their side.
I think the LCPC raised an issue about sidewalks. I mean, I don't think there's any plans from the township's perspective to require sidewalks at this point, other than what's already in existence. But Lancaster County Planning Commission was recommending sidewalks along the Zimmerman property. I'm not sure if it was along any other properties, but that was just a recommendation. I don't think there's any action being taken.
Because it was my understanding that since it would be residential now, and if he puts houses on there, those children would all go to the public school, and they'd have to have sidewalks going back through there.
I mean, it's possible. I don't know. I think a representative of the church is here someplace. I'm not exactly sure where. So, if there's any questions about that perspective. The gentleman or?
I attend church, I'm part of that church. So I did go through our committee meeting at church, and there were no objections raised.
Okay, thank you.
I'm also here as Stevens female too, so I got to do that, but it's double different. Maybe just a testimony in light of your comment, Matt. We, Stevens female, are operating as a non-conforming use. We did have a zoning change in the history, and always have been granted the exemptions or being grandfathered. The latest expansion was last year here before the board. Because we're non-conforming use, we were allowed to move forward with expansion as the same type of business. So just a history from our perspective.
Thanks, John.
Does anyone else have any comments on this rezone? Mr. Shimmy?
I really don't have anything other to add. As I said, Mr. Roth's here, and he's done work for the township before, but he's been hired as an independent consultant. In our situation, I think he worked, I think, extensively on the text amendment some months ago. So if you have any specific zoning type of questions, you could probably answer them.
Nothing?
RC, you have any questions?
No, not at this time. Just one quick one. What was that total acreage again with the 4 properties, Scott?
I think it's 16 plus 4 plus 1 plus 0.83, I believe.
Okay, okay.
About 22.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Okay. If no more questions, we'll close the hearing.
Thank you.
He made a motion to close it.
Oh, okay.
I'll make the motion to close the hearing.
I'll second the motion. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, you have two options, either under action, you could take action on the zoning tonight, or you could, since you received the covenant, take action at the next meeting. That's your board's prerogative. So you have, like I said, you have action.
Okay, RC, what do you want to do, now, tonight, or next meeting?
I think we should take the action at the next meeting.
Okay, next meeting then. Okay?
So we'll continue the hearing. You want to make a motion to continue this hearing to the next meeting, at which time you'll take a vote on the ordinance.
Make that motion.
I'll second same.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next meeting is?
Next meeting would be March
7.
7th. Yeah.
Stevens Farm.
Stevens Farm.
Oh, Stevens Park.
Be close to your home.
Work session town.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
See you there.
Take care.
We will change that attestation.
Past meeting minutes, any additions or corrections to those minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion, President, passes
I'll second the motion. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Police Department, Chief.
Thank you very much. A couple numbers. January brought 659 calls for service in East, 186 in Denver. Out of that, 255 cases were generated in East, 73 in Denver Borough. There were 19 reportable crashes in East and 2 in Denver Borough. It has been an interesting last couple of weeks. On February 12th, at about 11 o'clock in the morning, an officer was parked with his emergency lights on 222 North near East Church Street, and he was in the vehicle at the time. They were waiting a tow truck for another crash that occurred, and a car came along and struck that car in the rear, the officer's car in the rear. I can say the officer was treated and released from a local hospital, and the vehicle will be, from what I'm being told by the insurance company, will be totaled. I'm still working on looking for a replacement vehicle. The catch on that is Ford has changed the 2020 police interceptor utilities to a different style engine. I think it's a hybrid engine, and it adds $5,000 cost to that engine. So there are some other options which I'm exploring right now, looking for, I don't want to say older, but utilities that may be still on other lots. So I'm looking at that. Whitmore has 2 sedans, which we're also considering. So I'll continue to work on that. On February 16th at 2:22 in the morning, it was a Saturday morning, an officer struck a deer that ran out in front of the car. It was a sedan in the 1800 block of North Reading Road. That car is currently at the repair shop. It was taken there today, and they promised us as quick of a turnaround as possible. They are working with the insurance company, so we should have no issues there. The new interceptor utility, which we were expecting, was delivered this week and will be decaled tomorrow and in service tomorrow night. Corporal Solo, Sergeant Proj and I attended the traffic safety meeting that focuses on our traffic safety grants that we get for our speed details, and Corporal Solo received an award. They give an award to one officer in each department who does a lot of the efforts in the speed details, and we nominated Corporal Sola, and she received that award this week. I will be recommending at the next meeting, Officer McCabe and Officer Weaver be taken off of their year-long probationary status, which they have passed that year-long period. One of those officers was able to take his final test, the other will take it beginning of next week. So I will be presenting letters to remove them from probationary status at that time.
Thank you, Chief. Report. Any comments or questions for the chief?
Chief, with a unit that was totaled, hopefully it wasn't one of the newer ones, but
No, it was one of our older utilities.
replacement cost of that vehicle with the individual's insurance that struck that vehicle, how does that all work out? Or
This is the first one that I'm dealing with personally that was total. So I'm still in the process. I talked to the insurance company today and expressed to them that we need the upfitting of the new car, all the equipment put in that, we need that covered, and there was no issue there.
okay,
Now they're determining the value of the vehicle, because like I said, it was a 2014 utility with 140,000 miles on it. So the value is probably not as much as some others. But I'm working on it with them to determine what we can get back and recoup. But we should be able to get our $500 deductible back to that question.
okay, that's what I was getting at. Whitmore doesn't have any of those that you were looking at all?
No, not at this time, so I'm gonna look around. They do have 2 sedans, so that's always an option. We'll see.
Okay,
Hopefully I'll know by the end of next week which direction.
thank you.
Yep.
Any more questions? Thank you, Chief. George. Zoning officer, Tony.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you got one thing to tell me.
Consideration, approval of Chief Kepley, Assistant Right to Know Officer.
You can have this on your motion list, but the motion would be to appoint Police Chief Kepley as the Assistant Right to Know Officer for the township.
I'll make that motion.
I will second same.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, Tony.
Yes, good evening, everybody. You should have a copy of my report. I'll keep it short and sweet. For the month of January, 26 applications, 24 review, 11 for review, and, 24 permits issued, 11 review, and 20 for pickup. We did have 2 zoning hearing board hearings, one for January. That decision is pending because the case was continued to the February meeting. And we had 1 new case in February, Reinhold's property LP. They're waiting on their decision. So at the March zoning hearing, we will have those 2 decisions. No new cases for the month of March. Just skipping on down to the other items. I had a couple of complaints in the Heatherwoods development right next door to us. Several people have been doing mechanic work on the roads within the development. One of them had the transmission out of the vehicle on the macadam, a lot of oil and different fluids on the roadway. Now, that particular portion of the development has not been dedicated to the township. So I contacted the development, contacted our police department. They ran license plates on these vehicles. I contacted the owners and had those vehicles removed. I even asked them to clean up the oily mess that they had on the macadam. Happy to say they complied. The township manager and myself attended a brief meeting over at East Enfield Township to review some new software package that they've been using for permit processing. I'm happy to say that would be an added plus for our zoning department to have something of that sort here, and it looks like we'll be incorporating it pretty soon. I did meet with a representative from the Wells Fargo Bank. We're all aware of that over in Reamstown. That property will be up for sale. They're doing their phase 1 evaluations of the property. I'm helping them with that paperwork. And basically wanted to know what can be put there, right in the heart of Reamstown. So we'll see. They know what the limitations are. The township engineer, myself, and the representative from the Conservation District, Jim Frick, attended multiple pre-plan and site inspections of several different properties throughout the township. 654 Reinhold Road, the township SEO and myself have visited that site along with the township engineer on a possible land development plan. The gentleman wanted to put in a larger building for some storage situations he has. And while we were on site, we noticed that they had a real problem with the on-lot septic system. So as it stands now, the land development process has stopped, and he is in negotiations with the SEO and putting a new septic system for that residential property. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
You have any questions of the building officer? Okay, thank you, Tony.
Thanks.
Treasurer's report. Okay. To a total general fund of $45,431.21. Total state fund of $11,698.33. And a total traffic impact fund of $581.25. Question? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to pay the bills as presented.
I'll second the motion. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Land plan.
This is the chair. The first thing you have before you is members first. That project has been progressing, and as you are aware, you have a text amendment that you're going to be advertising for, and we're going to be looking to adopt that at a future meeting. But now what we're here is simply for a time extension, so the motion is to accept the written time extension offer as submitted by the applicant's consultant dated February 14, 2019, which will extend the deadline for action on the members' first preliminary final subdivision land development plan until April 21st, 2019.
I don't think anybody's here for that.
No, there's nobody here.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Next up you have is a stormwater management plan for the Zysaid property. That is actually an agricultural zone and conservation zone. Represents a 40 by 80 pole barn and an attached lean-to structure. It also did include a previous decision with the zoning hearing board for a special exemption to conduct a landscaping business that occurred in 2017. But we're here with this approval of stormwater plan to accept the current project, which is that pole barn and lean-to. So the motion you have before you is conditionally approve the Zysaid stormwater management plan, conditioned upon the applicant addressing all items outlined in the Becker Engineering Review Letter dated February 19, 2019, to the satisfaction of the township zoning officer, township engineer, and township solicitor. I do not believe there's anybody present from this one.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Next motion is to authorize the board of supervisors to sign an improvement guarantee agreement for the Zysaid stormwater management plan when signed by the applicant and provided in a form acceptable to the township and township solicitor, along with the required financial security in an amount acceptable to the township engineer and in a form acceptable to the township solicitor.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Next motion is to authorize the board of supervisors to sign the stormwater maintenance and easement agreement related to Zysaid stormwater management plan when executed by the applicant and submitted to the township in a form acceptable to the township solicitor.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
And the last motion is to authorize signature of Zysaid stormwater management plan by the board of supervisors on the applicant adequately resolving all conditions of the plan approval to the satisfaction of the township zoning officer, township engineer, and township solicitor.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, the next one actually was reviewed by me. This is not one that was reviewed by Becker. This is for the earth and wood. They're looking to do a building expansion entirely on existing impervious parking lot. They are requesting relief from having to do land development and to basically just handle this with the building permit phrase. And I'll read the motion and then talk about it a little bit more. First, the motion is to approve the waiver of section 194.11B1A, replacing the language with exceed a gross floor area of 5,000 square feet of a building footprint since May 2, 1990. Conditioned on a note being added to the plan to document that any future building expansion shall require land development and subject to the work mentioned in the application for consideration of the waiver. The date request dated 11/12/2018. So basically what they're requesting is a relief of the 1,500 square feet to expand that to 5,000 square feet. They'll be subject to any future land development if they expand beyond that, which quite frankly they have no more impervious to expand on without expanding on the non-impervious surface, which would trigger a land development plan at this point. They have accepted some additional conditions to go along with it, including upgrading their basin to make it more of an extended detention, as well as putting in some additional trees and landscaping around the property, and especially around the basin. They're also aware of a separate thing outside of this discussion, that they are going to have a discussion with the Conservation District about permitting things that are in their back lot, in particular permitting their stockpiles, and obtaining permits for each stockpile that's out in the back area. But that's a separate discussion from what we're talking about tonight.
What's the wish of the board? Well, just let me say, it's a separate, I understand what you're saying, Scott, it's a separate discussion, but it's a very important one because the back of their lot is not nice. I'll use that term loosely. It's kind of deplorable looking. So, you know, if we're gonna give them relief on this other stuff, they need to pony up and straighten that mess out. I had
We discussed it.
Okay.
We had
So
thought
we're all
that
aware of it.
the next step is actually not, at this point, Tony's step, next step is visit the Conservation District.
I've had discussions with the owner of the property and mentioned this exact issue. They want some relief from that, but we can't ignore what's going on the back lot.
Thank you.
And we will know with your approval tonight that that was brought up in the board's meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second all those conditions.
Okay. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Consideration to advertise the enabling ordinance intermunicipal agreement proposed for adoption at the March 7th meeting.
Mr. Chair, you had the enabling ordinance, that is for the memorandum of understanding agreement for the four municipalities as well as for the West Cocalico Authority to work together and share resources in times of need, both equipment and personnel. It has been, the agreement itself has been verbally agreed with all parties. Now all the municipalities are just going through at this point and is adopting enabling legislation. My understanding is Denver Borough has adopted their ordinance. We are next in line to adopt ours, and then we'll find out who's next after that. But this is simply just advertisement. You have the ordinance in the packet. This is a good advertisement. We would look to actually adopt take action on the ordinance on March 7th. So the motion is to approve sending an advertisement for enabling ordinance for municipal agreement to the newspaper for action on March 7th, 2019.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Whole business. MS4. What is this?
You must have a memorable understanding. I'm not.
Memorandum of understanding between, what was that part of the?
No, this would be different. This is with the authority. So what you have before you is the memorandum of understanding that we brought up at the last meeting, which would allow the township to utilize CDL licensed operators with the authority. We left that, our last discussion would be that we would take action on this if there was an interested operator from the authority that would be interested in doing this. We do have an interested operator that is interested in helping us out. When the authority became aware that there was an operator interested, they actually already executed this agreement. So this agreement is before you, and the motion is to approve the memorandum of understanding between East Cocalico Township and ECTA.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Now, full business MS4.
We have had Mr. McRae, and we actually have him in the audience. He's got a first week under his belt, and has been really helpful and asking lots of questions. And already starting to put our MS4 program in place. It's definitely been a work in progress as we've been basically developing something from scratch. I just wanted to commend him for the job he's been doing. He's been very helpful and really been doing a good job at this point. We do have some additional steps now to occur. Obviously, we moved the zoning office last week over. We got our new computer system installed. Had a little hiccups, but we worked through the software issues there. The next step now is actually to install the permit tracking software, which Tony had talked about earlier in the meeting.
John,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I gotta sign off for a second.
Okay, well, when do you want us to call you back?
Give me 10 minutes.
Okay, we'll call you back in 10 minutes. So, I lost my train of thought here, but we're talking about the permit tracking software. Now, when we had, this is a budget item in the budget. Normally, I would not bring this to the board's attention for a budget item. We would just go and purchase it because we've already discussed it. But as you're aware, when we were putting the budget together last fall, we were getting quotes, and we only had quotes. And the quote that we had gotten, I had made a mistake on. I read it, and I thought it was saying that it was basically a $2,000 a year. It turned out to be $2,000 a month. So we went back to the drawing board rather quickly and got some additional quotes. This permit manager program is actually promoted by CS Davidson. CS Davidson provides our CS data program, which Mr. McRae is already very familiar with at this point. It's our main tool that we utilize for our MS4 permitting. This permit tracker will be complementing that system. And at some point, CS Davidson is going to actually migrate both those platforms into one. Right now, there are two separate software packages. We had budgeted and planned on budgeting $5,000 a year for 5 years, which would be $25,000. We're looking at a fee of $16,000 to do an initial install of this software package, plus pay the first year of licensing. After that, it's $1,850. When you add those numbers up, I don't have it in my head right now, but you're roughly at under $24,000. So we're actually under what we were planning on spending for the next 5 years. It just has more of an upfront fee, but then has a much lower annual fee to go along with it. Tony and I, like I said, we as well as Brent, and a couple others watched the demonstration here, where we had a rather long 90-minute demonstration on how to utilize the software. And then Tony and I went down to East Hempfield and we observed the zoning office there utilizing the same program. We've heard nothing but good things about it, and it'll be kind of exciting when it actually is fully integrated with CS data, which is what they're promising down the road. But we do need this software package. We need to track, as we're now doing permanent inspections, enforcement actions, and other things that are required for the annual report. Plus, we're getting to the point where Tony's son issues so many different building permits due to Bergstones and Landmark and others, that the paper system and our combination of Excel and Access and other things that we're using is just starting to become overwhelmed. We need a formal program at this point. So it was something that the board agreed to at our during the budget discussions. I just wanted to actually just do an acknowledgement with a motion to authorize the purchase of the permitting software as discussed for a first year fee of $16,000.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
One thing, if I might add, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the system is very, very good, but it will in no way replace the zoning officer or the zoning office assistant or the MS4 technician. It's good, but it's not that good.
Oh, shoot. That's why I put it on record.
Now, we are continuing MS for discussion. We are having our working group meeting. I've instructed Ken now for at least the first couple of meetings to do a bi-monthly, so we're going to be doing 2 meetings a month as we get the program up and running. Then we will eventually drop the monthly, and we'll probably drop the quarterly as we get the program in place. We already have an agenda. We're going to be looking at the program, looking at how it's funded in the future, looking at how we're going to conduct these inspections if required. We already broke up the quadrants in the township that we're going to have to inspect. I think we have a reasonable amount to do for the first year. We picked the quadrant that has the least number of permits, since we have to get the first round of inspection done by June. So we're already only a few months left in the year. So we want to get that ball rolling as much as possible, and I just saw Ken roll his eyes. So that's going to actually be a lot of work once we get that ball rolling. So there's a lot of things that are going to occur at the working groups meeting, and we'll have a lot to report out at the next meeting.
Thank you. Fire and EMS.
We did have a meeting with Stevens Fire Company's chief. Talked about some issues. I did have a phone conversation with Scott Hockey from Reamstown. Scott's out this week, and as well as last week on vacation. Upon his return, we're going to have a meeting with the 3 fire chiefs. And the goal is to discuss possibly utilizing a consultant service just to kind of review fire operations. So that's something that is going to be a discussion point with the 3 fire chiefs, get their consensus, and then they'll take it back to the 3 fire departments. On the EMS side, I'm going to be asking Scott Hockey at the next meeting to present the same information that he presented to you. I think it would be good for him to present the financial picture of EMS, which we've already been talking about in the last meeting and a couple of the meetings before. It's in a I wouldn't say dire, but pretty close to its situation financially at this point. So I think it'd be good for the public to see what is going on. I know Scott is supportive of promoting that, so we will have that discussion at our next meeting.
Thank you. New business. Woody Waste Site hours of operation.
We have already sold a number of gate cards at this point, so people have been reading the newsletter. One person brought up a very valid point at this point. Now that the township is controlling access into the Woody Waste site, why does it need to be Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 p.m.? And they're requesting more of like a dawn to dusk. And even from an enforcement perspective, for us Saturday, we're not really going to be able to stop somebody who has a card from dropping stuff off on Saturday morning. We never have been able to enforce it in the first place. So I just wanted to get that formally acknowledged and see if the board would be willing to make a motion to approve setting the Woody Waste hours of operation to open daily, dawn to dusk, upon adoption of the motion is to approve setting the Woody Waste hours of operation to open dawn to dusk.
7 days a week or?
7 days a week.
Okay.
Yep, 7 days a week. I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
What the last step is with that motion, we're going to actually prepare a sign that will state that, as well as where to get the gate cards, what the fee is going to be. You have in your packet a instruction handout that's been already started passed out to some of the residents. Obviously, we'll change the hours of operation to reflect that. We have email addresses for the ones that we've already issued gate cards to, and we'll send an updated one. We also have in your packet the application card that we've been collecting information with as people apply for gate cards. So basically it is up and running. Upon the sign going up a week later, we will then start putting the gate into operation. So it'll just depend on how quickly we get this sign prepared and up.
And your annual is, according to this,
$15 per year.
Per year, and the clock starts the day they purchase
The
it.
day they purchased it versus calendar.
Right.
We thought that would be a little bit more further. Talking with Lisa, we did find out that there's actually a way to track when the car goes live, and basically we can run reports on a monthly basis as to when someone's car has expired, and then we would just deactivate it and did not pay the fee.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, can the business owners in the township purchase that also?
No, that was not right now.
Strictly residential?
It's residential right now.
Okay.
So the new hours will begin when the posting is up or?
The new hours will begin when the gate goes live. That's why, but it's only on 1 week period of time realistically. So I'm sure from when the sign goes up to the gate goes down, there'll probably be some people that come on Saturday, Sunday, but they're doing it already.
Okay. Manager report.
Purely just
Andrews.
Hey, Scott.
Yes.
Manager's report.
I'm back.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Okay. I have a short report for you. The first thing is an update on Heatherwoods. Last week, Burke Homes met with the township as well as with all of our attorneys to review the settlement agreement. Really, the thing that came out of that were 2 items that were missing from the agreement concerning a payment to Burke's Homes for modifying the existing basin and a fee in lieu of trees. That information, I'm looking back at Tom, has been relayed back to Lexon at this point. Next step will be the field walk the agreement with Burke's and then execute the agreement after those 2 remaining changes are made. Lexon will provide a check to the township, and the township in turn will pay Burke's Homes as the work is completed. Next item, Recreation Board, there was no meeting. Last meeting was canceled due to the ice storm, as well as the multiple Stony Point meetings that we're having. Because right now, we've been having over the last, we're averaging 1 week a month, 1 meeting a week right now with Stony Point. Stony Point Community Build update. There's been multiple meetings held with a recruitment focus. We do have 10 new volunteers that have been added. The next executive working group meeting will be March 5th. We anticipate Design Day, which we talked about. That's where it goes to the elementary school and school kids and they participate in designing the park. And then there's a unveiling of the design that same night by the architect. We anticipate that that will occur in April, May 2019. We are meeting with the school district tomorrow to set the design date. So after tomorrow's meeting, we should actually know when that design date is going to go live. LERTA update. Lancaster County adopted their enabling ordinance on February 13th to enter into the LERTA program. We have a number of interested parties, and I anticipate we will be receiving LERTA applications soon. The township is working with the school district to develop an application form. The county ordinance clearly lays out the process that all must follow with the county assessment office. I just want to state for the record, I have no doubt that this will spur on development and more importantly redevelopment on Route 272 corridor, of which we have over a dozen for sale signs right now. Overall, this will benefit our commercial industrial zones, incentivizing businesses to invest in their properties, create new jobs, and overall improve the appearance of the community. Finally, I've received requests for the township to update the zoning ordinance concerning video gaming terms. I personally feel it's time to update our zoning ordinance with a text amendment addressing this issue, as well as previously discussed flexible parking requirements, eliminating special exception requirement for home businesses to be replaced with a simple permit process through the zoning office, as well as finally tackling small cell towers. So I requested the zoning hearing board be tasked with making recommendations to township concerning these topics and the other changes they feel need to be incorporated into the ordinance. Upon receipt of comments, suggestions, our consultant for two and our township solicitor, which is a budgeted item right now, to start the process of developing the text amendment. So we do have in this year's budget money set aside for both updating the saldo as well as our zoning ordinance with text amendments. So that was brought up as a concern. In your package, you have a copy of what occurred in Strasburg Borough related to video gaming terminal. I the person that had raised the concern, I did pass on the point that that's something we just can't prohibit in township-wide, but you can place it in one zone. And so I would recommend that we start that process of controlling, but you're not stopping, which is what the Stratford Borough tried to do, ultimately failed at this point. But you have that there, and you also have Cohen Law Group, and they're talking about the current regulations that have been passed for small cell sites and wireless facilities. That is a hot button issue, and I will, as I'm looking at Tony this morning, as other municipalities have engaged in this, there are groups that are going around to each municipality when they start talking about small cell sites, and they will drop in on the township, and they will offer lots of comments about small cell sites, most of which are not going to be local township residents. So there is a special interest group that's going around that is trying to shut down all small cell site development. FCC, as well as the PUC, have both stated that that's not going to happen. They have a right to put these facilities in there, and all we can do is try to apply reasonable regulations on them, but we cannot stop it nor prohibit it. These groups feel that if we adopt this, that there's somehow that we're prohibiting it in the entire municipality. We cannot do that.
If I may add, we visited this, if the board remembers, a couple of years ago. And they're trying to fill the dead zones with these smaller transmission sites.
Is that also 5G?
That's also, yeah.
Yes, believe, and like Scott said, stopping it altogether is pretty much not going to happen, but regulating it is where we get. And if we have no regulations, they can come in and do whatever they like, realistically.
And they've cut back, and the reason we got this discussion, even, we should be reviewing these, there's a reasonable fee that they've now set. The city of Philadelphia was charging, I think, $1,000, $1,200 a permit application. They were using it as a revenue source. The PUC came back and greatly reduced the fees that a municipality can charge to conduct reviews, more in the $100 to $200 range instead of the $1,000+ range that was being charged by Phil. It's just something that we need to visit at this point. And like I said, a number of municipalities are starting to grapple with it.
A couple of years ago, we did process a permit for one at the Weaver's Market property. If you remember, they wanted to put a small box underneath the Weaver's Market sign and have this small antenna on the sign structure itself, which is already existing. And they never completed the project, never even started it, so it fell to the wayside.
So my request to the board is just to get the zoning hearing board just to say, hey, we want you, the township, to look at these items. And then we, like I said, we do have it budgeted in our budget right now for both the engineering and the solicitor to basically develop the text amendments.
Okay. Do you need a motion?
If you can, probably want her, so.
Sure, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I'll second that, Howard.
Okay, Marcy seconded. Any comments or questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you.
And with that, that concludes my manager's report.
Okay, after the meeting, yes.
Question for Scott.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should do old business or new business. Could you give us an update on the hiring process with the road crew and how the plowing went in the last week or 10 days?
The hiring process, we have a candidate that is actually very qualified for the project. We interviewed him today, and I'm actually extending an offer letter tomorrow.
How about I remember watching the YouTube video last meeting, the other 4 candidates that were not picked from Denver Borough, they didn't pan out?
We reviewed a number of applications. There was one qualified candidate, and this candidate actually stood above anybody else at this point.
Okay.
Very good candidate, actually.
I just happened to look on the township website, was the job opening posted on the,
It was advertised on that for review, and
that was it?
I don't know if it was actually posted on. No, it's not.
Because I just happened to look and the MS4 application is still there, but not, that's what caught my eye.
Yeah.
So, and update on how the plowing went.
We basically had 3 new individuals helping us with plowing new routes. Had a couple of complaints, but they were actually no more than what we normally have when we plow. We had a couple of streets where people thought we were a little tardy with. We had our usual 1 mailbox got hit, and a couple areas where people's yards got scraped, and we always have to save